This episode sponsored by Lake Monster Details, producing the Don's Light and Magic Legacy line of parts, offering upgrade parts and decals for accuracy, special effects, and lighting. Visit www.lakemonsterdetails.com and make it glow. Also sponsored by GCals, producing aftermarket replacement decals and custom quality graphics for your favorite spaceships. Visit www.gcals.company.site and add some personalization to your sci-fi models today. Also sponsored by Mask Design, boldly going where no masking kit has gone before. Take your model to the next level of detail and accuracy with a masking kit from Mask Design. Visit Mask Design on Facebook or click the ordering link in the notes below the video.
Hey, what's up guys? Will here. Welcome to the Ensign's Chair and welcome to another episode, finally, of the 1350 Ian Lawrence tribute build of the Enterprise A. And it's been a while since I've gotten an episode out. I was wrapping up, finally wrapped up the Kronos 1. That's done. I've just about wrapped up the USS Grissom, but there's a display stand I'm still working on for that, so I haven't quite called it done yet. But it's close. And then we had the holidays, so it's been a little bit hard to get behind the bench and actually do a lot of work. But we're back. We're here. I've got those builds kind of out of the way, so hopefully I can focus more on getting this build done because I would like to make a little more progress on this. We're coming up on the 1 year anniversary, not too much longer, of Ian's passing, and I really haven't got much done. So we're going to try to push forward now and try to get some work done on this and bring it to a completion in a decent amount of time, hopefully. But so this episode, I want to focus on trying to finish up some of these add-on parts for the saucer section. I've got we're going to talk about the rec deck. I've got the impulse engines about worked out. You can see it there. You can see my rec deck windows are in place. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about this. I'm looking because I want to make sure I'm pointing at it correctly. We're going to talk about this, and you might know what it is. But give me a minute. I'll put you on the bench. We'll get to work. All right, guys. So here is the parts for the Lake Monster Details Refit A shuttle bay hanger. And I went and opened everything up and pulled it out of the packaging. But so these are your main components. Now, one thing I do want to mention, this is an original DLM, Don's Light and Magic part that Cass has been doing a lot of remastering on a lot of the older DLM parts, just to kind of bring them up to date because the molds were old and they need to be reworked, and he's done a lot of reworking. But one thing he's done with this kit is it came with originally a solid floor, and there was no openings for the lights on the floor. But what Cass did was he went back and reworked it, and I've already painted this, but he went back and reworked it and made it into a clear part, which you can kind of see there. It's clear. It's black because I painted it and light blocked it on this side. I masked off the two landing strips you can see here, and they're marked on this piece, so it's real easy to line your tape up. You need a piece of masking tape 2 millimeters wide, and I believe, let's see, and 45 millimeters long. I may make a masking set for this, and if I do, I'll see if Cass is interested in including it with the sets from here on out. But so 2 millimeters wide by 45 millimeters long, and that'll get you the length of your landing strips. And the way I did it was I took it, well, first of all, like I said, it's molded on the floor, so it's real easy to line these up. So Cass did real good about making this real easy. But the other thing, just to make sure, is to take the decal and place it over top, and then just hold this up before you paint it. Now obviously it's light blocked now, so it's not, but before I light blocked it, masked it off and light blocked it, I held the clear piece over the decal and held it up to a bright light so I could see and make sure that these were going to line up properly. And then I put my masking on where it's marked out on the floor, and again held the decal in place and held it up to a light to make sure that my masking was showing through here. These lights, where these light strips are going to be properly, and it does. It's perfectly lined up to the decal, so no worries with that. Makes it real easy to do. So I've already masked this. I've light blocked it. I painted it white because Cass recommends for this floor decal that you paint the floor white and then put the decal on over it. So that's ready to go. And he actually originally sent me this piece, and then he modified this piece, and I think I was one of the first, if not the first, to get the new modification. I will say it did come with a piece of plastic, which some of the parts do, on the back here. And it's no big deal. You just take your micro saw or something similar and just straight line cut it off. But the way these parts are, they fit together real nice. And for instance, this piece here, it's keyed almost on the bottom here to fit in this notch right here. So basically you just fit it in there. And once you get it into place, it's a pretty tight fit. But it sits perfectly right where it needs to be, the part does. And then these sidewalls are the same way. They pop into place, and there's a groove on the back here that the back edge of these slides into, that holds those into place real easy. I'm not trying to push this in too much because I don't want to mess up the floor before I get the decal on there. I don't want to mess up the floor at all, but I really don't want to. The paint's not hasn't had a full day to sit and dry, so I don't want to put too much on the flooring. But you can see how those parts fit together. The other side fits the same way. And then you've got the ceiling that goes on top. Actually, this way around. And again, there's grooving on these parts to where the ceiling lines up where it needs to. You can see there's a notch cut on this, and then there's a notch, a raised edge on this one, and it just slides, fits right into place. So it's going to sit like that. So in addition to that, there are some other pieces that come in a separate little plastic pouch here, and these are going to be for your sides. So you've got your little side cubbies there that I guess are that these will just fit right on the sides here, just like that. And he's included clear pieces to do the lighting on the top of these sides. So those will light up real nice. And he's also got a clear piece for the roof lighting, so this part will just go in place after you paint it. Makes it real easy to paint it. And he's also got two options here. You can either, let me just pull this off. He's got this open on the back here. Now you can either take this piece here and make it a closed door if you want, just like that. Or you can use this hallway piece and attach it, and it fits right into place on there. Actually, it goes this way. And it's nice detailed inside here. And then you've got a little roof piece that goes on there. And again, a clear piece that fits right in that slot. That's for the side. These are my sides, and then here's the clear piece for this. Just fits right in there, so it lights up. Makes it real easy to set that up for lighting. And I'm going to do red lighting in here, just like it shows in Star Trek 6. It shows the red lighting in the back there. So I'm going to do mine just like that. I may cut this piece to do a partially closed door, just like it shows in Star Trek 5. So I may cut this piece down a little bit just to do kind of a partially closed door, just like it shows in the movie. And I think it's going to be real nice. It's going to be real easy to light up. I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to work on some masking for these windows. You got to have these windows in the back here. You've got windows in the control booth here, which are more reminiscent of the original series Enterprise. The way these control booths kind of come out at an angle. So you got some windows here too. So I'm gonna work on some masking for that. And like I said, if Cass is interested, I'll see if I can work out with him if he wants to, if it's worth it to him to include the masking for these. That way it makes it easier for everybody to do this. But the clear parts alone are really great. And the fact that he's got these solid pieces that you don't have to worry too much about light blocking, and then clear pieces, the clear inserts that go in to help light. That's fantastic. That is awesome. So I don't really need this piece. I got this piece here, and like I said, this piece here. Now this piece here I was looking at, yeah, no, it fits in there perfectly. I tried a little while ago, it didn't seem like it wanted to fit in there, but it's sitting in there perfectly now. So I'm gonna get that done, but I'm gonna work on some masking. You also have, I'm gonna do some masking for that blue strip on both sides. Both sides you had a blue lighting strip that went along here. So I'm gonna work out a piece. I'm thinking probably about a 1mm piece. Maybe a little bit smaller, but my Cricut won't go. I can try cutting a little bit smaller, but I don't think it's going to do much smaller than about a 1mm width strip. I might be able to do a 0.5mm strip. So I'll try cutting that and see how that looks. But I'm going to get that worked up. The first thing I need to do, though, is I already washed this one before I started painting it, but I need to take all this stuff in, and all this stuff needs to get washed. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to work up some of these masks, and we'll come back and take a look here in a little bit. Alright guys, so I've been working on the shuttle bay here and getting that all painted and decaled up. I still got to work on the other half of this wall here on the other side. So I've got the landing bay all done, light blocked. I've got it set up to where you can see I can light these landing strips. So my plan is to, I've got a sketch for an Arduino for to put on an AT Tiny microprocessor, and I've got it set up here. I've got to install it yet and get the sketch installed on it. But that's going to run my landing strip lights. And my plan is to take some of these wide-angled LEDs and put them at an angle, either forward or backward. I got to try it out yet and see which one works better. And that's going to be set up to have 6 on each side. So I can do 6 on each side, and I'm hoping that putting that wide angle at an angle will help smooth that out so I don't get that bright single point of light. Hopefully it'll kind of give me that that kind of wave pattern that you see in the movie when they're landing in the shuttle bay. So I'm going to try that and see if that'll work out, but I got to work on that because I still got to do the sketching and all that, and then work up the lights and get that all set up. Everything else is pretty much primed, and I've got this side here. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it, but I've got it to where that blue strip of lighting above the doors there is there. So I've got that. I've got the windows. I masked those off when I painted them, and they're ready to light. So this side's done. I've got to do the other side yet. And everything else is pretty much light blocked and primed and painted and ready to go. I've just got to finish that other side. So now I will say I masked off this side, this blue strip, and it was a real pain in the butt. I think what I'm going to do when I do the other side, there is a depressed, where this blue light is, there's a little depressed ridge there. There's kind of a groove. I think what I'm going to do is light block it, paint it, and then probably take like my pointer and just scrape that paint off, and just scrape the paint off, and then that way that'll give me that blue strip. I think that's going to be easier to do than masking this, because to mask this, the tape didn't really want to stick because it was such a small narrow piece of tape. So I'm going to try that and see how that works out, and I'll let you know once I try it and see how that goes. But let's set this out the way for now, and let's take a look at back to work on the saucer section. The upper part of the saucer, you can see I've got my my part for the impulse crystals installed here, and I've got the clear part that's going to insert in there that'll light that up. It's going to make it a lot easier to paint this without that crystal, the clear part in there. So I've got that out for now. This is going to get painted up, and then I can put the crystal in separately. But that's ready to get painted, primed and painted. And I've been working on the impulse replacement, the impulse deck replacement from Cass over at Lake Monster Details. And let me see, I might need to focus a little bit on this. Nope, too far. And you can see I'm roughing that in. I've got my filler here, the Bondo putty I've got in there. So I've got that filled in. I've been sanding it, coming back, and then filling it in a little bit more and then sanding it. And I'm about ready to put a primer coat on this just to see where it's at. And but what I did was, on this part here, the profile on this is more accurate than the kit part. The kit part, you can see, the reason why you got to fill this in is because the kit part is a bit deeper than the part from Lake Monster Details. You can see there it's got kind of a deeper profile to it. From top to bottom, it's a little bit taller than the part from DLM. And the thing is, this one, is it going to hurt you to use the kit part? No, but if you want to get it as accurate as possible, there's supposed to be more of a gap on the underside of the impulse deck here. When you look at, for example, I'll show you this. I'll pull this picture up because I like to show references. And so you can see in that screenshot or that picture there of the studio model, there's a bit more of a gap. There's a bit of a gap that's supposed to be underneath the impulse here and the lower edge of the saucer. So this piece here, this aftermarket part from Lake Monster Detail, which is originally a DLM part, which I want to mention because this does come with some photo etch that goes in here when you get the photo etch set, and from Paragraphics. And you can see you've got two different sets of grills here. The lower part here, this is 33 and 30, well, they're both numbered 33. These are for the kit part. And you can see they've got kind of a taller profile than these ones up here. These ones up here, if you look at your instructions with the Paragraphics kit, specifically references DLM. Well, DLM is, or was, Don's Light Magic, and now those parts are being made by Cass over at Lake Monster Details. So they just haven't updated the instructions yet to specify Lake Monster Details instead of DLM. But just know that these are the parts you're going to want to use if you do use the Lake Monster Details aftermarket part. So those grills go in there to give you that grill detail in there. And the other thing too is that's more accurate about this is this part here kind of cuts off at the top here. So what you end up with is the top overhanging this part here, whereas with the kit part or the DLM part from Lake Monster Details, this comes up and is in front of the section here. So it's, or this section here where it sticks out. So it's a little bit more accurate, especially on this under section here. It's a lot more accurate because that's the way it should be. Because you're going to have the, there's going to be that part from the neck that comes up under this. And we may have to add a little bit more in there for that part. I don't know yet. We'll see when we get to it. But what I had to do was, because you've got to kind of putty this in underneath here, I just cut some small pieces of styrene, if I can get this in the image here. You see them here. I just cut some little pieces of styrene and put them in there and glue them in place to kind of fill that gap, so that way the putty has something to rest against. And like I said, working on getting that filled in and the seam taken care of on that. I need to prime it and see where I'm at on that. I know I've got to do a little more work, but when I prime it, it'll tell me just how much more work I got to do. The other thing I've been working on is the windows here for the rec deck. And you get a photo etch part for this, but I didn't really want to use the photo etch part. I wanted to get a little more depth to these window frames. And what I did was I actually made a 3D part. And this part is just on here to hold it together while I inserted it. I kind of pretty much dremeled it away after I got it installed. But I installed that, and that gives me those window frames in there. And you see I've been going in here with a file and kind of shaping them a little bit more. You can see here this one's got a little bit where I glued it. There's a little bit of glue in the corners there that I need to get rid of. So I'll come in with the file and file that out and get it a little more cleaned up, and then paint it. And that'll be ready for my, let's see what I do with my written deck. Oh, there it is. And then that'll be ready for my rec deck, which you can see this part here is going to be visible to the outside once I install it. Now, you're not going to be able to see it now because I don't have any lighting in there. But once I get this installed and get it lit up, you'll be able to see this face here through the windows from the exterior. So I'll get that, finish getting this done. I've got to finish working on this back piece here where the view screen and the two elevator or turbo lifts are going to be at, where they come up beside either side of the view screen there. So I'll get that done and get ready to get that in place and get lights in place for it, and then we can take a better look at it. But that's where I'm at right now. I'm going to keep working on it. You can see I got to do a little bit better about covering this up when it's sitting, because something got on the front end here, so I'm going to have to touch that up, repaint that little part there of the clamshell in the front. But anyway, that's where I'm at, so I'm going to keep working on this, and we'll come back here in a little bit and take a look at what other progress I've made. Stay tuned. Alright, so I've been working on the this back section here on the saucer. I've just about got this this smoothed out. Well, let me focus a little bit. It's a little blurry, isn't it? And even with the white paint, it might still be a little hard to tell. It's a little washed out, but yeah, I think it's about as focused as it's going to get. So I've just about got this worked in. I got a little more sanding to do, but just about there. A little touch of another probably 800 grit, 600 grit sandpaper, and should be good to go with the impulse deck here. And I've got this, you can see I've got it taped off because I've been light blocking it. Because this being a clear piece, you do have to light block it. So I've been doing that. I've got my impulse crystal dome in place. I've got a reprint. I can't find the, this has been sitting around so long. I can't find the crystal, so I might have to reprint the crystal, which is fine because I've been using Anycubic's high clear resin for my clear parts now, and that stuff is awesome if you haven't used it. It comes out really clear. You don't get any of the yellowing like you do with this piece here. You can see this is my little my alert light that I've got on my desk here that I printed probably 2 years ago, and the camera doesn't pick it. It's pretty yellow, and the camera doesn't pick it up as much as it is in person, but it's really yellow, and that high clear just doesn't seem to yellow like a lot of the other clear resin I've used. So I'm going to be happy to reprint that crystal clear with that resin instead. So I got to reprint the crystal, and I've been working on my rec deck windows. Now, when I talked about this before, I had these little inserts I was sticking in here to create the openings for the windows, and I had that, you know, the piece comes, the model comes with this strip in here, and I was just sticking a part in here to create these, fill these gaps in. Well, I didn't like the way that was turning out. When you look at, let me pull up this picture of the studio model, and this is the best picture I've been able to find. If anybody's got a better picture, please let me know, but this is the best picture I've been able to find of this, and you got to zoom in a little bit on it. But you can see those windows are kind of rounded. They're not, you know, they're rounded in the corners, I should say. They're not round windows, but they're rounded in the corners, and it gives it kind of an oblong shape to it. So what I did was I went back to the drawing board. I popped those out because those pieces weren't working anyway, because this has to really be thinned out in order to stick the piece of clear that we're going to stick behind it to act as glass. So I need these to be able to be, the plastic to be pretty thin here. And when I was doing that, these pieces, even though I glued them in real good, were popping out, flying off, and it just wasn't working. So what I did was I printed up an entire frame that goes in here, kind of like this one, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. I printed up an entire frame and made it to where the windows were the correct shapes to my eyes, and just cut that one piece out that comes in the middle here. Cut that out completely, traced around, and I'm going to show how I did that on this other window here, because we're going to talk about that in a minute. But traced the outline of the frame, filed it out, sanded it some if I needed to get that frame to slide into place. I had it to where it stuck out just a little bit, maybe a millimeter or two from the face of the side here. Glued it in place, came back, sanded it flush with the outside here, and then I came back in on the inside with my Dremel and worked it down as thin as I felt comfortable working it to where now I can get that glass in there. And I've got my rec deck worked out. I've got it in here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, if this camera's going to pick it up. Let me turn this light out overhead. Let's see if I can get this to show up on camera at all. You can see it lighting up, but you can't really make out any details in the camera there. But it looks pretty good. I like the way it turned out. Remember, I used the, if I can get the lights to stay on here. Keeping the lights on, paying the bills. All right. So you can't really make it out in the camera, and I'm not going to be able to. Well, maybe you can. There you go. So you can see all the detail in there. It turned out real nice. I'm happy with it. Now, I have the Paragraphics photo etch part that comes with the Paragraphics set. And yeah, you can see that pretty good in there with the camera, so hopefully. But I like the way this worked out better. And let me open this back up because I need to talk about this rec deck a little bit. If I can pry this back apart without breaking any of the pins. There we go. Let me pull this rec deck out. I just got it taped in place right now. Yeah, it comes. Paragraphics comes with the rec deck part. Let me set this dish aside, lower half, and I'll show you what that looks like if you don't have this. This is it right here, and it's nice. You can actually get a decal set that goes for this instead of having to worry about paint and everything. There's a decal set. I think HDA ModelWorks has it, that you can use to do the color and all on this. It just goes over it, and then you use some microsol of that, and it sits down nice on there, and it looks painted on if you do it right. But this doesn't have. It's got a little raised detail, but not as much as what it should be. It's just enough to give it a little depth, but not much. So I had done this, and I've closed this up, so I can't really show it. But I think I'd shown this before anyway. But this 3D part that I purchased, that I did up, and it's got all the detail in there. So when you look at it, you can see chairs and tables where they're supposed to be. So I like that better than doing just the photo etch part. Even though the photo etch part, you can make it look nice, like I said, but I just think it adds a bit more to the detail to do it like this. And you've also got these window frames, which are visible in the studio model when you watch the movie. From the outside, you can actually see these frames through the glass. So this 3D part also gives you that, where the photo etch part doesn't. And so I'm happy with that. I like the way it's turning out. What I ended up doing to light this was on the inside to keep it from bleeding light through the hull. And I've got to come back and do some work. You see I had some paint peel on the inside. And that's that cheap primer that haunted me through the entire Oberth build, if you've seen that. This is that same primer. And I was trying to use on the inside, thinking, oh, I can use on the inside, it won't be a problem. Well, you know, when I pull stuff off, it pulls the paint right off. So what I'm going to do is just come in with some foil tape. I'm probably going to just come over this whole inside with some foil tape, at least on the top side, because it's so hard to get a good coat of black, especially in these pinholes, and you get light coming through these pinholes. And so I think I'm just going to take some foil tape and do the whole top side, even though I don't really like to use foil tape a lot because it is conductive. So you just got to be careful with it when you do your wiring, that you don't have wiring that's touching the foil tape, a negative and positive, because it'll ground it out. But I'm comfortable doing it. I've been doing this for a while now, so I'm going to take some foil tape and just do the most of this inside, if not all of it. But what I did was I put a piece of foil tape here that helped reflect the light back down into this, because what I did was I put two white SMDs on top here. This is a piece of sheet styrene. And then inside here, there's a roof piece, and it's got openings for lights. Well, what that does is that allows these two, let me turn this overhead light back on now. That allows these two SMDs to shine on this foil tape. And you can see how reflective that is. And it lets it reflect back into this plastic piece, and it carries the light down into the inside itself. So it lights up really nice. I'm real happy with it. In addition to that, once I put in my lighting for all the external windows, I'll get some residual light that'll come in through the sides here, and will help light it up some more. So I think that's going to look real nice. It's got these small openings here that on the other side, the light's going to shine through and cast shadows, and it should look real nice once I get that residual lighting coming through as well. But I'm happy with it just with the lighting that I've got on it right now. So that's going to work out nice. Now, one thing I do want to point out, and most of you will be familiar with this, but some of you may not be, and I had a brief discussion with this with Cass over Lake Monster Details, because we were talking about the scale issues with different parts. For example, let me pull out one of the Lake Monster parts for the shuttle bay. So when you look at this shuttle bay, you'll notice the size of the door here. Well, obviously, You can see these little small holes here. These are supposed to be doorways, and you can tell the scale is way off. Well, that's because this rec deck would never fit inside of the hull of the Enterprise the way it's designed. And I think I've got, let me show you another picture here. Andrew Probert actually did some designs for the rec deck that would have fit that curvature, because you do have that curvature on the underside of the saucer, remember? Which that would cut into, if this was a full-size representation of the rec deck, the curvature of this hull would have cut into it. You wouldn't be able to have it. So Andrew Probert had actually done some designs, and I'll share one on here. I'll show you one real quick. That's almost like a terraced look to it, a terraced look to it. And for whatever reason, they didn't go with it, because I think they said it was too busy or too involved or something. I don't remember what their exact terminology was they used for it, but anyway, they didn't go with that route, and they liked the way that rec deck looked this way, and they said they weren't going to be constrained by scale and all that, so they just went and did it this way. But this rec deck would never fit, which is why it's so small. And representations of this, including this one, including the photo etch, actually make you look at this through forced perspective. So that's how they do this in this model. That's how it's done. But and probably in the studio model as well, I would assume, because I'm not sure how detailed they went into it in the studio model, but I know you can see these frames. I'm pretty sure they probably did a small version of this in the studio model as well, because you can see it from different angles. But so anyway, just to point out, there is a difference in the scale on these, just because this rec deck would not fit in the saucer the way it's designed. But this is true to scale, the piece from Lake Monster Details. So if you look at this photo etch from Paragraphics, it comes with different little figures that are 1/350 size. And I did check. I didn't know this until I did some research, but the average height of a male is 5 foot 9 inches. And if you measure these come out to 5 millimeters, and if you do the math, that comes out to 5 foot 9 inch person would be 350.8 scale. So they're pretty accurate. But if you hold one of these up to the doorway here, the size is correct on this piece. So just wanted to point that out. I know a lot of you are familiar with the fact that that's the case with that rec deck, but it still looks good. You don't know it just to look through the window, because like I said, you've got that forced perspective that makes it look larger than what it is. But so I've got that worked out. I'm ready to go on that, and I was ready to start doing my lighting. And then I got a message from my friend Mike Hazelwood, and Mike just popped the question up: what did I think about a 1/350 forward observation lounge like they have in Star Trek V? And we had a little conversation about it, and it's I thought it's an interesting idea if you can make it work. So I started looking into it. I started taking some measurements. I started looking at some screenshots from Star Trek V. Now on Star Trek V, you see a shot from inside of the forward observation lounge, but you don't see it. It doesn't show up on the model. Because word is that they wanted to do it, but they just didn't have the money to make the alteration to the studio model to put those windows in to the front. So I had to do a little more research. I went back, I pulled up a schematic. Now this is actually the USS Belknap, and someone did this. This isn't an official blueprint as far as I know. So it's not canon, but if you look at this, you can see where they put the forward observation lounge, forward, center of the hull, and it's generally accepted to be on deck 6. So this is a good representation of where it should sit in relation to the inside of the saucer. But I still need to work out how did I want this to appear if I had to add these windows to the outside of the ship. How did I want these windows to look? Well, fortunately, I had a gentleman by the name of Jesse Bolin who shared a link with me for a video on YouTube from a person or a group that goes by JTVFX. And I'll put the link for this video in the notes below. So please go check out their video. They've got a couple other videos other than this one where they've done some special effects for different Star Trek movies and some other stuff. But seeing stuff like this really makes me wish that they would let Shatner go back and do digitally alter the Star Trek V to be the way that he wanted it to be, especially the ending. The ending's totally different than what his idea for the ending was going to be, but because of budget constraints, it got changed to what it is now, what it appears. So I wish they would let Shatner go back and do Star Trek, because this little special effects bit that JTVFX does is really cool. It adds just a little bit to the scene. And in it, they did the windows on the front of the saucer. And I'll show you a screenshot of it. But please go check out the video link down below and watch the entire video, because it has some other shots to it. And there's some other stuff. But you can see the windows here the way they are on the front. Now, this solves some questions for me, or answers some questions for me. It solves a problem. My question was, how do I want these windows to look on the front? If I do it and I don't like it, I've kind of already cut the hole and put the window. Seeing this shot makes me feel comfortable enough that, hey, I like the way that looks. I think that looks good like that. So that's kind of my reference for doing this part. So once I decided that I could reasonably do it, I went into CAD and started doing some different workup on it, started building the room out. And this is what I have. Let me focus here. And this is what I came up with for the room. Now, I've had to make a couple changes to this. I've had a couple different sizes. This is the first print I did of it, which is way too small. This is maybe 537 scale instead of 1/350. And then I went up a size. I just kept increasing the size. And what I did was I took one of those shadow figures from the Paragraphics set that I knew was the appropriate height. And I would print this, see if that character matched up to the door opening properly and everything else. And if it didn't, I'd increase the size on it. And finally, what I came up with was this here. And let me see if I can focus just a little bit more. And there we go. And you can see how that came out. It turned out real nice. I'm real happy with it. I do need to paint. I've got to go in and paint these side tables, though. Side tables I haven't done yet. This opening in the floor here is going to be a clear part that's going to let me light. Remember, in the movie, there was a communications console that popped up from the bottom, from the floor, and came up through it, and it lit up. So I've got a clear part that I'm going to print that is going to be in that hole there, and it's going to let me put an SMD underneath and light that. So that's going to add to the lighting on this. You can see that 1/350 figure that I've got right there. And I think that room is the appropriate size. I think that's where it should be. And I'm really happy with, if I can get this to focus a little bit better, the way that ship's wheel turned out. It turned out real nice. I tried to put a little bead of bronze on the front there to simulate where that plaque is supposed to be. But it turned out real nice. I'm real happy with it. And so I've got that worked out. Now here's the thing with this. This is going to have to sit on the front here, and I've got this peg. So this peg is going to have to come out. And then the other issue is there is a well, not navigation, but there's a marker light. I think it is a clear navigational light on the front here. That's got to, let me focus. Sorry, people. That's also got to go on, but that's not going to be a problem because I think this is going to sit low enough down that, let me just take this part here out. I think it's going to sit far enough down that this part will be able to fit in there. Now the problem is that this is so tall to fit 1/350 that because of the floor thickness I've got on it, it's going to pretty much take up the whole thing. The whole space in there. Measuring this at 1/350, basically each one of your floors here. Now there's only 2 floors in the saucer edge here. That's deck 6 and deck 7. Deck 7, don't really know what's there. Nothing as far as cannon as far as I know, but in the blueprints that I showed you, the plant for deck 7 underneath is just like a mechanical room, because remember that communication console has to be able to recess down into the room under it. But measuring this out, the thickness of this is about 20 millimeters, I believe. Let me grab my ruler and let's take a look at that. I think it's 20, or was it 10? Maybe it was 10 millimeters. Yeah, it's, well, if I add the saucer bottom, it's almost 20 millimeters, or yeah, 20 millimeters, 2 centimeters if I add the bottom saucer part to it, because there's a little bit of a lip that comes down to about right here. So it's about 10 millimeters per floor. Well, this part here is actually right at 10 millimeters. So it's right where it should be, and that's the piece right there that fell out. So what I've got to do is I've got to work this out yet. I've got to Dremel out this whole part. Right now I've just got it Dremeled open to put the nav light in. I'm going to have to Dremel this out more. Then what I will do is I will take the window part that I've made here. I think I got to focus again. And I will hold this on the front. I'll draw a pencil line around it and figure out where I need to cut this out at. And this may sit a little low for it to actually be on the correct deck, but who's to say it can't be a mid-deck floor? Like I said, you don't know what's on this deck 7 in the saucer edge. It could just be mechanical rooms and stuff. Maybe it's just a crawl space. We have no idea, unless you go by some of the non-canon sketches. But I don't have a problem with this being lower than what the deck should be according to these windows. It's almost an homage to the TOS Enterprise to have these windows on the front, even though I think those 3 round windows on the front, I think were actually sensors. I don't think they were windows. And somebody can correct me on that, but I think they were actually supposed to be sensors. But they look like windows. They're lit up just like the rest of the windows on the ship. So I always thought they were windows, but then I'd read at one point that they were supposed to be sensors. But it's almost an homage to that because you've got these 3 openings in the front here. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pencil this out. I'm going to drill holes around the edge to get this centerpiece out, and then I'll file and sand enough to get this frame piece that I printed in. And I'll let it stick out a little bit. And once I get that in place, once I get this worked out, we'll come back and take a look at it. So give me a little bit to work on that, and we will come back and we will take a look at it. All right, I've got this opening roughed in. You can see where I drilled around it, and I came on the inside as well with my router bit, little router bit on my Dremel here, and opened all this up on the inside. I took that one peg out in the front, and now I'm ready to come in with my my files and just file this opening smooth and open it up enough to where this piece will slide into here. Now I always under drill these openings. You don't want to over drill it because it's easier for me to under drill it and come in with my file and open it gradually, versus if I over drill it, then I got to do a lot more putty work. So always under drill when you're drilling out like that and trying to create an opening. That way you can come in and work at it gradually, versus if you try to drill it and you drill out too much, it's a little more work. So I'm gonna work on getting this filed out, and once I can get this slid in place, we'll come back and take a look. All right guys, I've got that worked out, and I've got that window frame in place. I've got what I did was I just, like I said, came with my file and just filed around it until this would just slide into place. It's not even glued in right now. It's just press fitted in there, and it fits like a glove. But I like the way that's going to look. It's going to turn out real nice. I may actually have to bring it over to the right just a little bit. I think I'm going to have to take some measurements. Looking here, it almost looks like what I went by was the center line here. So no, actually it should be right. This is my center line here. It might be over to the left a little bit, just a tad too much. I may have to come this way just a little bit. Well, that's fine. I'll just take my file and file this way a little bit, and now let me slide this over. And then what I'll do is I'll take my my thin glue, my thin set glue here, and I rarely apply this stuff directly. I usually, what I'll do is I'll put a drop of it on the the blade of my hobby knife, and then I'll let my hobby knife touch where I want the glue to flow. Because if you try to drip this stuff in where you want it, it's going to go all over the place. So I don't do that. But let me work on this. Like I said, I think I want to move this over maybe not even a millimeter, maybe like a half a millimeter. It's just not off much. But I'll move this over just a little bit, and I'll get this glued in, and we'll come back and take a look. All right, guys, so I've got this centered up right where I want it, and I've got it so that it's protruding just a little bit, maybe a millimeter out the front. And that way, I want it to protrude a little bit. That way, when I go to sand this, it'll sand flush. If I don't have it sticking out some, I'll have little divots where it's not even with the hull once I sand it down. So what I do is I'll take a little bit of my thin set glue here, and I'm just going to touch the tip and let it flow down the blade right into where I want it, instead of trying to drip this stuff in there. Because sometimes even doing it this way, it'll run a little bit, but nowhere near as bad as if you try to just drip this stuff down in there uncontrolled. This thin will go all over the place. So you can see I'm just putting a little bit on the blade and touching the blade to the edge where I want it to go, and it flows right in there. It's all right if I get a little bit over. So once I get this in here, I'll let this glue set up, and I can work on puttying and sanding this. There we go. I think that's good. Yeah, a little bit in there. So I'll let that set up, and then I can come back and sand this flush with the hull. So let me go back and we'll do a little more work on this, and we'll come back and take another look. All right, guys, so I've done a round of primer, putty, and sanding, and this is what we've got. And I think it looks pretty close to how it appeared in that CGI image. Now, I've had people ask, what am I going to do about the sensor bands? And I'd already mentioned before that I wasn't worried about saving these sensor bands because it's more important to me to get all these seams nice and smooth than to worry about keeping these sensor bands. And it's been asked, what am I going to do about it? So I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing yet. My thought is probably going to go with the method that Boyd over at TrekWorks used in his latest 1350 build that he was working on, and mask off where the sensor bands are going to be and use a kind of a high build primer to create those slight depressions where the sensor bands are supposed to be, and then use decals for that, because a lot of people use decals on this anyway. And at this scale, I'm really not worried about keeping the textured sensor bands. To me, it's just there's other things that are more important than that as far as getting. Now, there are people that can do it and they can keep the sensor bands and get all these joints sanded smooth somehow and come back and probably re-etch. And I've tried re-etching, and I'm just not good enough at re-etching to go that route. So I've already decided a long time ago I wasn't worried about keeping these sensor bands. So I'm going to probably go the method that Boyd used on his recent build and put in those sensor bands separate, which works out great because I don't have to worry about messing anything up with putting this window in. And a lot of people be like, well, you take a big risk messing up your model when you do modifications like this. But I'll just say that risk, it's why she exists. It's why we build her. Well, maybe not why we built her, but yeah, you take a little risk. You got to get a little bit out of your comfort zone if you're going to improve your modeling skills. So, I don't mind doing little stuff like this. When Mike mentioned it, I hadn't even really thought about it until Mike mentioned it, and then I was like, maybe there's something worth trying. I do like to do something a little different with my builds each time. And a lot of times it's with the custom display stand, but sometimes there's a little something I do. Just like on the Kronos one, I did the flashback parts for the rear firing torpedo, the rear torpedo cover, and the impulse engine cross members. So I like doing a little something different every once in a while just to set my build apart. And when he mentioned that, I thought this was a really good idea, something to do. I haven't seen done yet. I don't know if maybe somebody has done it. I haven't seen it. I've just seen that CGI model version that I showed you a screenshot of. Please make sure you click that link and go check that video. It's a really cool video. But so I've got this worked out, and it's going to line up just right. I don't know if you can really see that, but it's going to line up just right with where it needs to be. So I like that. I may have to do a little more work because I've got to fit the lights here. I did make a trench in this side to make sure I could run the wires for that. I got to get this thing in frame for that front nav light. So make sure that this didn't interfere with that going in place. But I do still have to get lighting on top, and I'm probably going to do this the same way I did the rec deck. I'll put some SMDs up top here, and I'll put some clear styrene here. I probably won't use a piece of sheet styrene on top of this like I did the rec deck, though, because I'm kind of pressing the thickness here as far as being able to get that bottom part, that bottom saucer section on here. My lip for this is right at the edge, so I may have to thin this out just a little bit and maybe thin out the bottom of the saucer section as well to make it fit, but it'll fit in there, and that's all I'm looking for. So I think that's going to turn out nice. Like I said, that those 3 windows in the front is kind of a nice homage to the TOS Enterprise with those 3 sensors, I guess they are, in the front. But hopefully, I think we're pushing about 45 minutes, so I kind of want to wrap this video up. But I'm going to get those sections done, so when we come back in the next episode, I will have the rec deck in place. And there's one other thing I got to do with this before I can put that rec deck in, because I've got to put a piece of plastic clear plate. What I'll do is I'll cut some plastic off of a grape juice bottle or something that's clear and use that for the glass. All of these are flush, these windows, but when you look at the studio model, this one doesn't really look like these windows are completely flush. It looks like there's a bit of a frame around these windows, so not too worried about that glass being a little recessed in this one. Also in this one, that picture I showed you earlier, notice that there's kind of a tan frame around these windows, a tan paint job around these windows. It's not white like the rest of the hull, it's tan. So I need to do that, and then my thought is I'll mask this off and work on the rest of this. And the only concern I have is when I come back work on the seam, I'm going to have to be careful, because remember that lower saucer section has to go on here, and I'm going to have a seam here I need to work on. So I'm going to have to be real careful when I work on that seam that I don't mess up what I've got here, because I've got to do that tan paint job on this and then mask it off, because I've got to have everything in place, obviously, when I put the saucer halves together for the final assembly. And that means I've got to have that plastic in place for the glass window inside here, and then everything in place. So I'm going to have to mask that off to protect it, and then try to sand this seam along here, which I think I can do. Sand the seam along here without damaging this. And same thing in the front here now with the observation lounge. I'm going to have the glass in place for that, which again, I'll put some clear plastic on the inside here and then put that piece in place. And that clear piece will act as my glass, so to say. But I'm going to have this outside part for this anyway worked out, because I can mask over the windows, but I need to have that worked out. That way, when I work on this seam below the window here, I don't have to worry about messing that up and then having to try to mask the individual windows off and come back and repaint. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge still, but it's like I said, you got to get out of your comfort zone a little bit to improve your modeling skills, and I don't mind taking little risks like this every once in a while. But anyway, guys, that's it for this episode. Like I said, when we come back, I'll have those 2 pieces in place, and we'll be ready to start working on the lighting kit from Trek Modeler and getting that all set up, which we got to talk a little bit about that too next episode. So make sure you come back and watch that. Again, I want to say, if you haven't subscribed, please, if you get any use out of these videos, hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you check out the links in my notes, which are always there, for all my sponsors: Cass over at Lake Monster Details, Gus over at GCals, and Gary over at Mask Design. I'll be using a little bit from each one of those for this build. I've already got the shuttle bay I'm using from Cass, as well as his back impulse engine clear. Gary, I'll be using his masks to paint this, and I will probably need some custom decals maybe, or some other decals from Gus. I noticed in that video that he's got USS Enterprise under this front window. I don't know if I'm going to worry about replicating that or not. I'd have to see if Gus has the time to do that. If he doesn't, then I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to bug him to do something like that when he's a busy man. God is a busy man, and so is Gus. But again, if you haven't subscribed and get use out of these videos, please hit that subscribe button down below. And then if you want to get the updates as they come out, hit that little bell icon and you'll get a notification every time one comes up. But again, thank you for watching. Until next time, keep modeling.